on Wing's YouTube channel and also Wing's website. And I'll be sending the link to you after the webinar as well. A little bit about using WebEx. Firstly, if you lose your internet connection, don't panic. You can just reconnect using the link I mailed you. And if you need any sort of assistance, please contact Rebecca, who is here with us, Rebecca Soragny, or you can send her a message on the chat box here on the right-hand side of your menu. You can adjust or test your audio settings using the audio pane on the top menu. You click on audio and then speaker microphone audio test. That's if you'd like to unmute yourself or if you're not listening to us very well. Again, if you have any problems or any questions, you have my colleague Rebecca here with us today, and you can contact her on the chat at any time. All of you have been muted automatically as you joined the webinar. That's to avoid background noise. So if you'd like to ask any questions live later on our Q&A session, you can just unmute yourself by clicking on the red mic. And you can also click on the hand here to raise your hand to ask a question. So featuring here today, we have Erica Mobley, that's from the Foundation Center. She's Director of Business Development there. And Hanin Khatib from the Arab Foundations Forum, whom most of you probably already know. And I'm Anna Pinho. I'm Wing's Knowledge Management Coordinator. I'll be facilitating the webinar today. And also, if you have any questions, you can just direct them to me as well. And here's my email address. That's the same address from which I sent you the link to join the webinar today. Just talk a little bit about Wings right now. And Wings is a network of associations such as the Arab Foundations Forum and support organizations as the Foundation Center. And we're currently in over 50 countries around the world. Our mission is to strengthen and promote philanthropy development around the world. We do that through our knowledge management programs, through our leadership programs, and our learning and sharing programs. And these webinars are part of these learning and sharing programs. I think it's very important to share all the knowledge that's being around in the philanthropic sector. So here with us, we have Hanin, who will be talking a little bit about the Arab Foundations Forum before Erica starts her presentation on the philanthropy side. So, Hanin?
Hello.
Hi, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's perfect. First of all, I would like to reintroduce myself. My name is Hanin Khatib. I'm the program officer at AFS, the Foundation Forum. And I would like to welcome each and everyone who is able to participate in this valuable webinar.
Sorry, Hanin, suddenly your voice is breaking up. At first it was really good. Maybe change something.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Yeah. So I was saying I wanted to thank each and everyone who is participating. Unfortunately, due to unpredictable weather conditions that have been affecting the region, we have a very big snow frame.
I'm sorry, it just happened again.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I think it's the weather conditions because we're having a storm, a very huge storm affecting the region, and the breakage might be affected by the storm. So I'm sorry for that.
Sure. I couldn't understand from what you said. Oh, yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, so just to make it quick, I'm not going to go and introduce I just want to thank Wings and congratulations for doing this. Thank you, Ms. Erica Mobley, who will be taking us on the tour in the philanthropy insurance program. And thank you, Anna, for generously hosting the webinar and managing the customer community. I'll give it back to you now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Hanin. I'll just gather from what you said that you're thanking both the Foundation Center and Wings for organizing the webinar, and apologizing because, and I learned from Haning, apparently the weather conditions in several countries and are not ideal right now, and people might be even logging into this webinar from home, and we really appreciate that, and we're making the effort joining us today. So without further ado, I'll pass the word to Erica, who will be showing us Philanthropy Insight. That's a great tool, actually. Erica?
Okay, hello. How am I coming in? Can you hear me?
Now perfectly, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I'll say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Many of you are already familiar with Philanthropy Insight, but I'm glad I'm here today because I want to show you how Philanthropy Insight can be used to enhance your effectiveness as grant makers and help you make better funding decisions. So just a little bit about the Foundation Center, where Philanthropy Insight was developed. Foundation Center is a national nonprofit service organization that was established back in 1956. It is headquartered in New York, and our mission is to strengthen the sector by advancing knowledge about philanthropy through such tools as Philanthropy Insight. So just wanted to give you a brief overview of Foundation Center, but just to get back to Philanthropy Insight. Philanthropy Insight is an interactive mapping tool, and it's designed for grant makers. It can help you visualize and interpret data in many ways that reveal patterns and relationships, and that's what we're going to see during today's demonstration. It is also used for many different reasons to help people inform their work, but a couple of main reasons why it is used is to help people plot the locations of grant makers and recipients, to view aggregated grant maker and grant data, to overlay grant data and demographic and other thematic data, which may not make sense right now, but we'll see it as we go along in the demo. So I'm going to spend some time demonstrating each of these, and we're going to focus on a couple of different areas. I will be taking questions at the end, so just write all your questions down if you have, and I think we're going to have some time also to go into live demonstration. Okay, so with that, let me go to the next slide. Hang on. And I'm just getting used to WebEx, so excuse me. Okay. So just to talk about some of the benefits of Philanthropy Insight. I mentioned some just a second ago, but it's really to increase knowledge in the field. So if you're looking into funding a certain area, you may want to know who else is out there doing what I'm doing. And that can also help you engage with finding funding partners. In addition to identifying potential grantees, who would you want to potentially give funds to, evaluating the performance of nonprofits, demonstrating scope and reach, and assess funding needs. So we're going to take a closer look now at the Grantmaker map. There's two sides to, two ways that you can search Philanthropy Insight. So I'm going to go over that right now. There we go. Okay, so what you're looking at is a Grantmaker map. Here you can see the full scope of all 133,000 plus grant makers that are worldwide here on Philanthropy Insight. These are all the grant makers that we've captured in the database. This database, by the way, is fed by a database of information that contains the over 130,000 foundations and grant-making public charities. It's updated weekly, and it comes from a variety of sources. So in the U.S., we collect data from the 990s, the tax forms, every year. But in addition to that, we go above and beyond, and we have partners throughout the world that feed us information through electronic e-grant reporting, and we'll talk about that a little later. That allows us to actually get data in a more timely fashion. And in addition to that, we have a team of indexers in-house that spend a lot of time scanning the websites of grant makers all over the world and collecting data that way. This actually uses, Philanthropy Insight uses the popular Google Maps interface. So that's what allows you to use the zoom in feature. If you're familiar with just using Google Maps in general, it's the same exact features that you can use here in Philanthropy Insight. So you have the ability to zoom in. You have the ability to use the slider, zoom in or out as far as you want. You can double click to zoom in on a map area at one level at a time and go down. You can also use your mouse to drag the map. And there are 3 types of map view options, the standard, terrain, and satellite, just like the Google Maps feature. So the About This Map section display, which is over to, and I know this may appear small on your screen, but it's over to the right-hand side of the screen, this entire section of About This Map, it always displays the information about your customized map. So as you go into the Change Map Parameters, which is to the far left of the screen, we're going to go into that right now. So as you go into that, any parameters that you change there will be displayed as a reminder in the About This Map section to the far right. So let's take a look at that now. Oops, I think I jumped ahead. Let's go back. There we go. Okay. So at the top of the screen, it asks the question, what do you want to map? So you have 2 options. You have the Grantmakers or you have the grants map. So we're going to take a look first at the Grantmakers map. And with this, I'm going to plot my pins so that I can display the Grantmakers on the map. This is all within my search strategy here. Now, for this example, I'm going to actually skip over the Grantmaker Indicator field, and I'm going to go over to the field of interest. So this is going to be the most important field for you. This is where you actually start to see, okay, who's giving in these particular areas that perhaps you're giving in. Okay, this is where you can find that commonality, or you can search over areas just of interest to you. So for this example, I clicked on Human Services and Community Development, and I've also highlighted that it's World Map. I haven't specified any country right now, and I'll refresh my map. Okay, so I'm leaving the advanced options out at this time. All right, so what I'm able to find is that there are over 40,000 grant makers that are, and I'm looking at my About This Map section to the far right, in the world that are giving in areas of human services and community development. So that was a very simple search, and this is a good way to just scan the landscape and see who's giving in those areas. But now with over 40,000 grant makers in my collection, that's way too large of that's way too many grant makers for me to actually do anything with. So this box, I'll just highlight the data view, would actually pull it all into an Excel type of spreadsheet format. It will just list all the grant makers right there. But with 40,000, way too much, so I want to narrow down my search again. Okay, so in this scenario, I'm going to actually go back into my parameters, and I'm going to change some of the options. Oh, and before I do that, I just wanted to highlight that when you scan over the pins, you're able to actually pull out information about that grant maker. So here's a Grantmaker profile. I know it's probably a little small, but it's of EFG Hermes Foundation located in Egypt. So that kind of just gives me information about the grant makers that are out there. And if I want to see the full profile, there's a hyperlink so that I can click on it and then pull up that information. So it's very convenient in that fashion. Okay, so now I'm going to go a little bit further. And I actually want to get a little bit more information about the Grantmaker Indicators. So I'm going to go under Grantmaker Indicator, and I want to know the number of grant makers. So now I'm just looking to add on that extra layer, and here's where I'm going to be able to see the number of grant makers giving in community development, neighborhood development, human services by country. Okay, so I'm keeping it very basic. So I'm going to go back up here. Okay, so now when I scroll over, I can see that in Egypt there are 4 grant makers that are giving in community development and neighborhood development and human services. Okay, as I rolled over, you know, I can roll over any country now and be able to see just the number. I can actually go to the side here. I see that I still have a large amount, but again, if I wanted to pull down all that data per country, just the number, aggregated data, I could do that. I can also print it, I could save it, or I can copy it to a map. So now I'm going to scale back again, and I want to take a deeper dive into Egypt because I see that there are 4 grant makers there, so I want to know who those grant makers are. This is that list that I told you about. If I wanted to just go ahead and see, okay, all the grant makers here in Egypt. So I actually scrolled through the entire list to find that in Egypt I have this set right here of the 4 grant makers. Okay. Now drilling it down another level, I'm actually going back in and I'm saying, all right, I don't want the full list, I just want Egypt. So this is just to show you, this is very simple, going back and forth. You always go into your change map parameters. You can drill down. This is what we call drilling down. So now if I just want to see Egypt, I'm going to go back in here, change it just to Egypt. And now my map is going to adjust and it's going to zoom in on Egypt. So this allows me to have a smaller data set, very manageable. It's only 4, and now I can actually view the data here and be able to find out a little bit more details about the actual grants that were given in addition to the grant maker. So here's my list now, and what I did, remember on this side, I viewed data. So I clicked on that data view, pulled up this spreadsheet in order to see information about just the foundations. They're all hyperlinked, so I know that if I click on them, I'll be able to pull up the full profile of that particular funder, like this. Okay, so here we have a full profile of EFG Hermes Foundation. So I have my contact information, and now I can build my strategy a little bit more, do some research about this organization if I like, because there's the URL. I can find out about their purpose and activities, their fields of interest. So I did know that, yes, community development, human services is what I was looking for, but in addition to that, I can now see that their interest lies within education and healthcare. So those are things that I didn't know about it, this organization, children, youth. So this is how we kind of start to build our strategy and understand the research side of the work involved in finding funders or building relationships, just understanding the full scope of that organization. Okay, so that was an example of how to drill down when you're doing research on increasing knowledge in the field. This is the basic research, and this is how Philanthropy Insight is commonly used. Another way that it is also used is to find funding partners. So to find funding partners, we go back into our search parameters, and the fields that we typically look at are, and this again is we're still with the grant makers, we're still finding funding partners with grant makers at this point. We will get to the grant side of it in a minute. Okay, so with that, I went under my quick start. I still have my plot map pins with grant makers. My Grantmaker indicator is on total assets, because I would really like to see who is really heavily involved in funding in my areas of interest. By assets, like how much money is being poured into it, and who are the really big ones, big players in the field. So with that, again, I'm still looking at human services, community development, and I can, if I want to, go into demographic indicators and actually change the parameters here for total assets. Perhaps I want someone who has, I want to filter it so that they have a minimum of $1 million in assets. So I can go to my minimum, I can change the parameters here. I can also do the year of establishment. I want to make sure that they've been around for about 10 years or so, 20 years. I can look at their total given. So this gives you the flexibility of really narrowing it down to what kind of partners best identify with you. Are you looking for total assets or giving? You know, how long have they been in business? Okay, so then from there we will refresh our map. These are typically, this example for finding funding partners and the previous example for just increasing knowledge in the field are the main reasons people use Philanthropy Insight, because it gives you that visualization to be able to see on a map where your partners are. You can also, from that point of view, be able to see where there are gaps and where there's no funding. And we'll see that a little bit more when we look at the grant side of it. Okay, so the grants map. Again, if we look at the change map parameters box, which was off to the far left, it says, what do you want to map? And you start there and you change it now to grants at the top. Okay, now with that, you can plot your map pins for grant makers and your recipients. So now the green dots, the green pins will show you where the grant makers are, but the red dots will show you where the recipients are. Okay, so this will kind of give you that balance and being able to see grant makers versus recipients at this point. So where the money is actually going. Okay, so this information, I just want to go back and just give you a little bit of information about the data and where it comes from. It's being fed by a database of information on over 1.6 million grants dating back to 2008. This data is updated weekly, and it comes from a variety of sources, and it works exactly like the Grantmaker map. It has different filters and indicator options as well. So there are various ways to customize this map by filters, plot map locations, and indicators. So the first scenario that I'd like to walk through is how you can use the Grantmaker map to increase knowledge in the field. Okay, so in this example, I am highlighting that I am searching over the grants map, and I want to see the total grant amount that is going into arts. Okay, so you can't see my subject areas, but I've clicked on arts. Okay, and I just want to see for all years, and you'll notice that I have all years checked off, all years across the world. Let's just see how many grants are being awarded to organizations involved in arts. Okay, so you can see in the About This Map section that there are over 12,000 grant makers giving grants to over 25,000 recipients, with a total of over 250,000 grants that are awarded. So arts is actually one of the most popular areas of giving, aside from health and human services. It ranks up there amongst the best of those areas in giving, but it also has some gaps. And you can see from this map, if you look at the red pins, which represent the recipients, the organizations, right, that are receiving the grants, you can see some disparities here, right? But when you look at the number of grant makers, you can see a lot of them bundled in the U.S., so that's a big area of giving there. So if you were looking to partner with someone, you could say, oh, wow, you know, there's there aren't too many people that are giving in that area in Africa, and other parts of the world as we kind of scan across. So it gives you that visual. It's a little bit better than doing research on a regular database that's just going to feed you back statistics and aggregated data. It's a way to look at it and then kind of narrow in. Okay, so in this example, I see that I looked at United Arab Emirates, and I can see that there is 18,000, I think it's so small, about 18,000 in total for a total grant amount that was awarded there. Okay, so here's where I might want to take a deeper dive. All right. Okay, so I might decide that, all right, I take a deeper dive, narrow it down, I go right into country, and I can look at, you know, particular countries and just see the exact amount of grants that were awarded or what have you. Or I may want to back out of it and say, all right, you know what, I have an idea of what's happening there. There's another area of research I want to hit. Let's see if we can assess funding needs, which again, this is a very popular way. A lot of our audiences will search Philanthropy Insight, assessing funding needs. So in order to do that, what you would do is you would go back into your change map parameters. You're still on grants. You still want to plot and see grant makers or recipients or not. It's up to you. It's more of a visual. The map will be shaded to represent the different, well, in this case, total grant amounts if you did not check off grant maker or recipient. So in this case, we're checking that off. We want to see the total grant amount that was awarded, and we're going to change up a little bit. We're going to look at community development. All right, so let's go back to community development. And I'm not specifying any particular country, but I am specifying the years. So in this case, I really just want to look at 2011 to present. Okay, so now it gives me a different view. And now again, if I look at United Arab Emirates, I can see that the total grant amount awarded was $170,000. I believe that's what that says, over $170,000, which gives me now another perspective. So it's assessing the funding needs. It's always something that can help an organization grow in developing a certain area that they're looking to give in, or if there's a new area of interest, it's a way to see what's currently being done. So that's kind of the flexibility that Philanthropy Insight gives you. There are tons of other things that you can do with it. We learn from our customers all the time. We do an annual survey just out of curiosity to find how is it working for you and what areas do you find yourself searching in the most. Is it for assessing funding? You know, there's a variety of things. Just going back, I want to point out that under demographic indicators, you can see that obviously you can narrow it down by the grant amount as well right here in this bucket. You can also narrow it down by a particular funder if we look at name filters. Okay, you can narrow it down by a particular recipient. So it gives you that flexibility. If you have the name, you can go ahead and populate that field with the exact name, and there will be it's kind of like a smart search. So as you're going along and searching, you'll see that a drop-down menu will pop up with a listing of all the names that are in line with what you're typing. So then you can just click on it. So we do have an authority file that captures all the names of organizations in the database for your convenience to be able to just click on it once you start typing it in. And if you type it in with abbreviations like university, can be abbreviated UNIV, it gives you that flexibility of being able to capture that and spell it out and understand what you're requesting. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that. Okay, so how do we collect all this information in a timely fashion? The data that we actually have at the Foundation Center goes back to 1998. We realized that for research purposes, we don't populate all of our electronic resources with data that goes way back to 98 because we realize that you probably want the most current. But sometimes for research purposes, people do want a 10-year span or maybe even an 8-year span. So what we've done in Philanthropy Insight was we cut it back to 2008 to present, and that was actually a recent decision that was made after surveying our customers. But with that, electronic grant reporting allows us to capture information on a timely basis. We have over 800 electronic grant reporters that send us their data, and they're foundations like yourselves that send us their data directly. And some of you are probably involved in our electronic grant reporting process, which thank you very much for sending us your data. But this process, it's a process through which the grant makers can submit electronic grants lists to the Foundation Center directly. It's as simple as sending us an Excel file listing your most recent grants. Many grants management software products include an export feature connected to the Foundation Center. It bears our logo of eGrant reporting, and it says Foundation Center. So if you're using FIMS or Foundant software or NPower, and we have a list of about 10 partners that bear that logo. You would know it because you would see it within your software. It allows you to automatically just click a button and export your data to us. But the benefits of doing this are that it expedites inclusion of grants data so that you don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for any type of government reporting. So in the U.S., we do the 990 tax reporting. We don't have to wait for that. It comes direct from you. It also fosters great accuracy, preventing possibility of error because it's direct from you. With that, it offers you great control over indexing terms that are applied. So those indexing terms are those subject areas. So when we were looking at community development, if there was a term that's similar to community development and you don't define it that way, say it's neighborhood development for you, and we're calling it community, we would actually be able to build that in and add that as a related term to community development so that it will recognize it. And that actually allows for everyone to then benefit when they're trying to find you and they're typing in neighborhood development. They'll be able to actually find you under community development. Okay, and then it also will help you inform your work because with everything being indexed in the database, it actually saves you time in trying to weed through information to find information about the funder, information about the grants that they've awarded, being able to visually see what maybe one particular funder is giving and who they're giving to and where there are gaps in their giving. So this is really good for people working for organizations that are strategically trying to gain more knowledge about what their own organization is doing and how they can be better informed and how they can kind of look for partnerships. So it really helps with that. A couple of things that I just wanted to mention about that is, I think I have it here. Yes, my last bullet point on that. In addition to, giving us your information, being more transparent, and helping the philanthropic sector overall, you would actually receive a complimentary Philanthropy Insight map. The map actually is of your organization's giving, so it's a customized map. With that, we have a lot of organizations that have received their map, and they actually put it on their website, so it's public-facing, so that their constituents could go on and just kind of see, oh, here's what they're doing, and it's very interactive. It's the same type of interactive Philanthropy Insight site that you're used to using, and if you haven't used it, then that I've demonstrated and we'll be going on to live demos. but it is the same map. It's just of one grant maker, and that would be you. So it's, you know, it's definitely beneficial. A couple of other things that I did want to mention about Philanthropy Insight. It's to your benefit to become an electronic e-grant reporter because it's used by internal staff a lot. A lot of internal staff at foundations will include it in their presentations to the board or to other groups. And again, like I said, it is posted on your public website. Several major foundations have it, and they've posted it. So if you want to learn more about this, please feel free to contact me directly at enm@foundationcenter.org, and I would love to give you information about it. Okay, so with that, I'll start by opening the floor for questions, and then we can do some live demos.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much, Erica, for this great presentation and for showing us what Philanthropy Insight can do. And we could all see that it's a great tool both for people looking for grants and also for foundations and grant makers in general, that it can see what their peers are doing and the needs of the sector in general. And we'll open up the floor for questions. You can, as I mentioned, raise your hand or unmute yourselves here on the red button by your names, or you can always send us your questions on the chat box here on the right-hand side as well. Just one thing that I'd like to mention, that it's important, Philanthropy Insight can be a very useful tool for the sector in general and for associations of foundations and grant makers as well. As the Arab Foundations Forum is doing today, and they can host webinars to show how the tool is used and how they can take advantage of it. And also, and Erica, and I do know that you did a map specifically for human rights with the International Human Rights Funders Group.
Yes.
So an association working on a specific topic could also benefit from doing something like that.
That's correct. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yes, we work with a number of affinity groups that have custom Philanthropy Insight maps. And just as a side note, at the Foundation Center, we've really been taking a deep dive into analyzing our data visualization tools like Philanthropy Insight. So in recent months, we've hired a UX team to actually interview all of our customers and find out what is the most popular ways of searching Philanthropy Insight, what are the things that they hope to get out of it, does it satisfy their needs completely, are there other things that they would like to see. To our surprise, everyone was very pleased with Philanthropy Insight, and they wanted to see a little bit more. Our custom sites for like human rights and animal grant makers, some of our affinity groups, they specified, you know, certain things that they wanted to see and really dive into. So in the coming months, we will be launching mapping tools, and we would love to actually run it by your group. You'll see that Philanthropy Insight will be enhanced in the coming months. We are looking to do more custom sites that are on a kind of as-you-want-it basis. We realize that with Philanthropy Insight, there are so many tools compiled into one that we are offering it in such a way going forward that it's kind of what you make it. If you want to see the demographic overlays, we add that, so we can really get into customizing it a little bit more, which is very exciting for us right now, especially for me, getting a chance to play around with all these tools. So we'll keep you posted about what's to come, but you will notice a difference with Philanthropy Insight. It will look a little different come the end of next year, and we'll be doing a series of trainings and webinars to introduce people to some of the new search functionality. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Oh, thanks, Erica. That would be great. Maybe just Hanin raised her hand here. And Hanin? Oh,
Oh,
not really. Oh, hi.
hello. Hi. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly, but I had a question to Erica in regards to something that we been asked around ago. And we
Uh,
didn't have an explanation.
Honey, sorry, but we can't really hear you. Maybe it's better if you type the question on the chat box, then I can read it out loud, if that's okay. And meanwhile, Erica, would you mind giving us a brief kind of live presentation on philanthropy insights? I think it would be interesting for people to see an actual search being done.
Sure. Okay, I can actually go back and do a live version of some of the things that I mentioned. Let me just make sure. Okay. Okay, so this is actually I can make everything come alive now. Okay, so what do you want to map?
We can't see your screen yet, and maybe.
Screen. Okay, let me go back here. If I do.
And share in my desktop.
Okay, there we go. Share my desktop.
Now we're starting to see it. Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so this feature, I just want to point out, the change map parameters is always going to be off to the left, and it's something that you just have to click on, and then it pops out right there. And for your convenience, after you refresh the map, it goes away. So just a toggle back and forth. Okay, so in the demo that I have on my static PowerPoint slides, this was the box that I was demonstrating, where you can choose from Grantmakers to grants. So if I click on grants, I have the option of plotting both Grantmakers and recipients, or one or the other. So let's just try it with recipients. If I'm just interested in understanding who actually received funding for, and I can go to a particular area here. I want to just scroll down a little bit, make sure you can see everything on the screen. Okay, so if I were to click on education, I want to point out the different levels of our hierarchy. So here you can see that there's a drill down where you're able to actually indicate, do we want to look at education? Maybe we don't want to look at just education very broadly, because if I click on education, it actually includes everything that falls underneath it. That's a broader term, a narrower term, a top term. But here, if I wanted to look at specialized organizations in education, then I have more choices. I can look at, management, technical aid. I can look at association. It goes down 3 levels. So we're able to really dig deep into our taxonomy to find the information that you want. As far as our hierarchy is concerned, there is a taxonomy standard that we follow, which is called NTEE, and it's just one of many standards that exist. So we actually base our taxonomy off of that, and we're going through a taxonomy project today, which is allowing us to work with organizations to help better define the areas that they're giving in. So we've actually started adding more to our own taxonomy in order to capture those subject areas as they define it, instead of just changing it to what we're calling it. So we do have a standard that we follow for everyone to be able to find this information, but it embraces those areas that are defined by any particular organization. And especially, as Anna mentioned, when we do custom maps, we are able to include the exact taxonomy of that organization. So you can understand for like animal grant makers, for example, there were terms that they have that we don't have in our taxonomy, so it was best for them to actually do a customized version of that. So this is customizable. Okay, so in this example, let's just go back. I will go with Education Association. I'll keep it on world map. And this is how you would really want to start. You want to start with world just to see you know, unless you really want to look specifically at the U.S., but otherwise you want to look at world just to get a scan of the landscape. Okay, but before we hit refresh, I'll point out the name filters. Okay, and this actually starts going through our list that's already populated, and it's our list of all the grant makers that are in Philanthropy Insight. That didn't seem like a long list, but as I start typing, it continues. So this is only the A's. Okay, and then you can also see the recipient name. So if I know a specific name, I could just start typing it in. I could say, for Grantmaker, if I wanted to find out about the Arab, see, as I started typing in Arab, now I have three choices. So I can go to Arab Gulf, Arab Human Rights, National Arab, and it captures. You'll notice that it didn't start off with the Arab, the last one. It starts off with National, but it captured it right away and pulled up those options to give me that flexibility. Did you mean that? The demographic indicators, I just want to point out, is information that comes from the U.S. Census and U.S. organizations, government organizations that provide this information so that we can do overlays in the U.S. So this is U.S. specific. So if you were looking at trying to find out information about income and you wanted to see the amount of given versus the amount of income in certain areas, or by employment, by labor force, you can do that, and it gives you an overlay of like a grid type of look. So, you know, we use the pins as indicators, but for the demographic indicators, it actually gives you that grid. Okay.
And Erica, sorry to interrupt, but we don't have much time left, so maybe if we could perform a search maybe in a country in the Arab region so that you can just see the results. And then, oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Is there any particular area? I'm open for requests. But I'll search over, let's search over Lebanon. I'll change the, where are we at? There we go. Okay, so let's search over Lebanon. And as a matter of fact, I'll leave it open, and we can plot grant makers and grants. Okay, I didn't choose any demographic indicators because that's U.S.-centric. And let me just refresh my map. Okay. All right, so here I can see about this map that there are 26 grant makers identified in Lebanon. Now, that doesn't mean that there are only 26. It just simply means that we've captured 26. So through electronic e-grant reporting, obviously that number could be, you know, we could have more of a collection in the database. So it looks like there are 47 recipients and 78 grants. So here, if I just toggle over, I can see the total grant amount. Total grant amount. Let's see, we can capture our green one. Just the grant makers. Sometimes it gets funny if too many are next to each other. Okay, so now if I wanted to pull this data and just see, take a closer look at the organizations involved, I can click there on my data view, and immediately it populates it with a list. I can sort this list by organization name in alphabetical order, which it automatically defaults to, but if I wanted to have it in descending order instead of ascending, I could do that. I can sort it by country. Okay, and that indicates that, because what I am looking at here is I'm looking at a view of the world, a world map view, which I've narrowed down to now just Lebanon, and I decided to look at the total grant amount. So the grant makers, as you notice, can be in other countries, but the total grant amount that's actually being received in Lebanon is what I'm looking at with the map view. But now I can go back and I can look at the grant makers and where they're from, or I can take a closer look and say, select the first one, and see, okay, who did they give to in Lebanon and in what amount? And then I can click here and find out more about the American University of Beirut and what other grant makers have awarded them money. So it always allows you to do that deeper dive. This, again, can be exported to Excel for you to save. You can print it, you can save the list. So it's very flexible and convenient in that way. Anna, was there any other, anything else that you wanted to see I can show really quick, or?
No, that's great. That's, maybe I should address Haning's question that she sent over chat for us. And
sure.
Basically, it's more regarding taxonomy, and here at Wings we deal with that all the time, especially about countries and specific countries and regions of the world. Because she's mentioning that they have a number of Palestinian grant-making members, and they have this concern that their information is listed under Israel, for instance, since they operate in occupied Palestinian territories. So she does understand, and we all do, that this is a very sensitive issue. But since this is an Arab members network, and the country to them is Palestine, so this is, I think, it's more of a comment in a sense that it's hard when you go all over the world to define and different taxonomies and different countries and regions around the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. It gets a little trickier for us outside of the U.S., but through partnerships like Wings, it does help us to better associate where the grant is actually being awarded and where the grant maker is. E-grant reporting definitely helps us with that, but I would like to address that a little bit further offline because I think it's important for us to make sure that the data that's reflected in our database holds true to what's actually happening. So is that something that, Hanine, if you don't mind, maybe we can talk offline and try to sort out where the discrepancy is and whether or not there's e-grant reporting happening with that organization or those organizations or not, because the first thing we can do is just make those changes. That would be really important.
Oh, that sounds great, Erica. I'm sure, and Hanine would be happy to, and we're even discussing and having these discussions offline. So.
And I just want to point out too that the "Tell Us What You Think" feature that's located right here is primarily for any discrepancy that is found, or just for suggestions or any feedback. So that link is illuminated in your complimentary version through Wings. So feel free to definitely use that and let us know.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Erica, for showing us what Philanthropy Insights can do for the whole field of philanthropy, actually, and how helpful the tool can be. And thank you, Hanine, for joining us. I'm so sorry I can't hear you very well, but thank you so much for putting this together and for inviting your network for this webinar. And thank you, everyone who joined us, because I do understand that several people couldn't because of weather conditions in different countries in the Arab region. So I'll send everyone who registered and the recording of this webinar. And of course, if people have any questions, they can email Erica or myself here at Wings or Hanine, and we'll be happy to answer them. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.
And to leave the webinar, you just have to close the window now. Thank you.